Good day, everyone. I'm your host, Paul Lawrence Vann, and welcome to the Wealth Academy podcast, where we teach you that wealth is more than just money. It is leadership, discipline, financial intelligence, and legacy building strategy. During this episode, which is focused on the seven streams, one legacy, and why multiple incomes are the blueprint for generational wealth. I'm your host, Paul Lawrence Vann, the Leadership Catalyst. I'm a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, certified financial manager, and author of the book Leadership is Influence, which is an award-winning book. And I really look forward to sharing this information with you as a part of the February broadcast episodes. So again, this is episode 335. And today we're talking about something that really separates uh, the financial stability from the financial unstoppable. There are multiple streams of income. If 2020 taught us anything, if inflation taught us anything, if layoffs taught us anything, it's this. One stream is vulnerability, multiple streams create stability, and ownership creates legacy. So, with that being said, welcome to today's episode. And I want to just lean into this particular topic because it's really one whereby you're not one dimensional, but you're multidimensional in terms of your power, financial power. So if your primary income stopped tomorrow, how long would your household survive without stress? Would it be 30 days, 60 days, 6 months? Generational wealth is not built on a paycheck. It's built on assets, investments, intellectual property, businesses, dividends, real estate, and strategic ownership. And it's important to understand this. And wealth builders simply don't rely on one source of income. They build systems that pay them in multiple directions. So if the stock market is down, you still have your life insurance. If that's down, you have your real estate investments. So there are a lot of strategic ways to approach that seven-figure uh, streams of income. Today, I'm going to walk you through 8 critical questions to determine whether you're building income or building legacy. And I think it's very important to understand the difference between them. Am I dependent on one income source? Answer this question for yourself just as I'm answering it. If 80 to 100% of your income comes from one employer or client, you're financially exposed. Wealth builders reduce risk by diversifying income. So when one market is down, another is up, and that helps you maintain the balance. It's just like investing in the stock market. You may have monthly dividends that you receive from different companies, but you also invest in growth companies. These are companies that are not haven't been around that long, but they have a really wonderful projection for success in the future. For example, the AI industry right now is really going through quite a revolution, quite a change, and businesses have to adapt to it. And that's just one example. But let's get into it. Again, wealth builders reduce risk by diversifying their income. And it's very important because you have to have more than one source and able to make it. Because if you have one source, let's say if you lose your job or you lose a contract, then you're going to really struggle for a while until you can regain that or regain more of it. And then what assets are currently paying you? That's the question that you want to ask yourself. What assets are currently paying you? Salary is an active income. Assets create passive income. Do you own dividend paying stocks? What about rental property? A business? What about royalties? Digital products? So I can fill the line for each of this. I have dividend paying stocks. I had rental property before that I had people that actually paid for my house and then I sold it. And I have currently have a business. I get royalties from uh, my books that I've written, and then I have digital product. So if your money is not working, you are. In other words, if you don't go to work, you don't earn money unless you, of course, you're on leave or you have a vacation. So the thing that you want to really position yourself for is to understand that, gosh, I need a side hustle. And as a result, that side hustle can also add to your income. And oftentimes it may be passive income, which is a great, because you not only have your active income, your salary that you receive in your benefits, but you also have something that's generating income passively in addition to what you get each and every 2 weeks or every month, however you're paid. Now, the next question is question three. Am I investing consistently or occasionally? Consistency builds streams. In other words, the more you invest, the more you have the ability to generate more income. So it's a good thing. Even if you're in the stock market and you lose a little bit of money, if the current price of the stock goes down, you still have other stocks that can offset it. And for example, I just had a stock that I purchased, and I purchased it at a high number. At that time, it wasn't that high, but then the value of the stock dropped. And so what I did when it dropped, I just bought a couple of more shares of it because in the end, I'm going to break even because that stock is going to go back up in value. So I'm not concerned with it. And in fact, it happens to be the company that has generated the most revenue in the United States thus far. So that gives you an idea of what it is. And wealth is built through uh, repetition, not randomness. In other words, you double down. Like I doubled down on that stock purchase, and I purchased additional shares of it because I know it's going to go back up because it's very dynamic. And then let's say if you're investing consistently, occasionally, let's say use an example of $500 monthly invested into dividend producing assets over time, and that creates predictable cash flow. For example, I had looked at a stock as a REIT, a real estate investment trust, and they are good because they invest in apartments, apartment buildings, and of course, we know not as many houses are being purchased now, are being built right now. The home building industry is on a downturn because we lost a lot of employees as a result of people being deported, etc. And so rentals are up, or if you have investment in stock with the malls, so you can invest in that and office buildings. And most buildings are REITs, even some schools, colleges, a lot of them are REITs. And so that gives you an even better example. And so what happened, I would calculate it, how many shares of stock, excuse me, I would have to purchase in order to obtained a yield of 1,200, um, well, $12,000 per year. And I calculated that particular number. So if I purchase X number of stocks in this REIT, then I know I would bring in an additional 12,000. And that just happens to be one stock that I'm invested in, but I'm in depth and I know how to invest in it. So you want to allow your wealth and you want to build it through repetition, not randomness. It's very, very important to understand this. Question four is, do I have a skill I can monetize outside my job? Now we're talking side hustle now. You're still working full time, many of you all. And if you are, that's great because that can supply your source of income to help you start a business. But if you have a skill to monetize outside your job, how about public speaking? Public speaking is always a great, great field. And you don't have to go to a location in person. You can actually do it digitally now or virtually now. About consulting? Well, consulting is really great because you're taking the expertise that you have and you're providing it to a company or organization. Coaching is another. Coaching doesn't have to be one-on-one coaching. It could be group coaching and it could be coaching for an entire company. What about writing? As I mentioned before, right now I'm writing my fourth book. And so that again gives me that ability to secure and obtain income. And I don't have to, I can write the book one time and it can sell for years and years. And then what about content creation? So you want to look in the social media area. That's another great area. And of course, we know AI literacy is one of the big ones. You can actually start an agency with that because a lot of companies, especially small business, they don't have people who are actually working in that field. So you're sitting on intellectual property and you have to protect it. In other words, if I write a book, I have to get the copyrights and everything, trademarks, get everything in order so that that property isn't stolen. In fact, I had started my podcast, Wealth Academy podcast, which I'm on now, and someone came back and they named it very similar to mine. But the reason why I still have priority on it is because when you look at the year I started it and all the recordings, over 300 episodes, where there's no denying that I started it, the podcast before the other person, so I'm not worried about it. And then you have to monetize it. You have to set it up where people can pay you. You can have a funnel you can put it on. You can also have lead generation. You can get that from putting together a monthly newsletter and much, much more. So again, looking at it, do you have some skills that you can monetize outside of your job? Question number 5 is my lifestyle expanding faster than my income streams? Now, this one you have control over. And many professionals, they increase their lifestyle before increasing their streams. And this can be very dangerous. In other words, if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, buying a house in a gated community or buying that nice European import vehicle, or you're just purchasing things, or you're going to concerts paying $4,000 and $5,000 for a concert, which to me really makes no sense at all. But that's just me. I digress. And so you want to put yourself in a situation, you don't want to put yourself into a situation that creates pressure, not prosperity. Streams must grow before spending does. In other words, don't don't purchase something before you actually have the cash in hand, because contracts can be canceled at any time. Opportunities can be also canceled at any time. So you have to make sure you have the money in the bank, and you can't necessarily have it. You want to move it into those fields that are going to give you the best chance to generate some extra revenue. And so this also is very, very important. And the next question is number 6 is, am I building income that survives me? So we're talking legacy, we're talking generational wealth. And generational wealth asks a bigger question: will this income continue if I'm no longer here? And for an insurance policy, it definitely can. Same thing for I have books that can continue because the books will still get royalties that come through, and also the digital products. So that's why it's important to insure your intellectual property, because if you don't, it's people will try to get it from you. And they'll make money off of you. I noticed one thing that I was doing. I knew a lot of people I had interviewed, and I would put out a newsletter uh, twice a week. And then I cut it back to once a week. But what I found is that other people in my industry, which is leadership and finances, they were actually taking the content that I developed and putting it on their newsletter. And I would make posts, and they would have the same posts as mine. They would just change the name. So what I did is I stopped posting things because I felt that they would have to learn how to do it themselves, as opposed to really copying what I was putting out there on that in the atmosphere. And so that shut them down. But it's amazing that people who claim to be professional and have expertise, a lot of them don't have it, but they know you have it, and they will try to really undermine what you're doing and consider themselves an expert without even having the knowledge of what they're talking about. So that's kind of how that goes. So and that came through observation. So let's look at this. Will the income continue if I'm no longer here? And I addressed that it can be. So in other words, that's legacy thinking. And then You have to put into place trust structures like a living trust, or put your business into a trust. And then investment accounts, dividend portfolios, and business ownership. All of these things matter. And so I just really want to emphasize that these are some things that you can do to really make a tremendous difference. Now, question 7, let's move on to that. And it's a question I pose to you. Do you understand the difference between earned income and leveraged income? Earned income requires your time at the job, in the brick and mortar business, building for the company that you work for and with. And leverage income multiplies your time. Wealth builders shift from trading time to building systems. In other words, if you have to be at a certain place, and that's the only way that you can earn money, in many ways you're very limited. But if you have other sources of income, and you have a small business and you have someone who manages that business for you while you're in the job. For example, you could have government contracts, and government contracts you don't necessarily have to be the one who delivers the product. You just have to make connections with people who are experts in that area who can deliver it for you. You pay them, you split the contract, and you both have a win-win situation. And so that's very important. And then you can leverage it by investing in, let's say, multi-family properties. So you invest in that, you'll have revenue generated as a result of that, and then you make improvements to the building, and that will also help increase your income as well. So again, do you understand the difference between earned income and leveraged income? And so again, earned income requires your time. You have to physically be at the facility working. You have to be there to ensure that you get the 40 hours a week, whatever it may be, you get paid. But leverage income, it multiplies your time, so you can do more uh, as a result of having an extra income stream there. And then question 8 is, what is your 5-year multiple income strategy? Remember, no plan equals no strings. So you have to start thinking multidimensional in terms of generating that income. So if you're in the stock market, do you have a dividend target? What are you trying to meet? I spoke earlier about, if I knew if I purchased X amount of stock, over the course of the year, you could receive $1,000 a month of dividend income. So that gives you 12,000 per year. And in other words, you're giving your money a job, and you don't necessarily have to be in a physical building in order to receive that money. You just simply keep your eye on the particular stocks that you're interested in and let the money work for you. And then, as a real estate acquisition plan, do you have a real estate acquisition plan? You want to purchase a duplex? Do you want to purchase a multifamily property? Do you want to invest or purchase office buildings? So these are things that you can do. Or nowadays, you can invest in a REIT. And REITs are required to provide 90% of all the income that they bring in with their shareholders. And it's written by law. So they only take 10%, but the 90% they have to give out because it's the people who are the shareholders who help build the company up. And then what about a business revenue goal? You small business owner, are you looking at uh, bringing in business plan? You want to put that, you can get grants for that as well. And then a digital product roadmap. Are you going to rather go out there on Canvas, put together a $27 product, and you're going to get out there and sell it to people? And then that leads to coaching and other things. So legacy is, in fact, intentional, and it's important to remember that. So here's what I want to share with you. Um, the Wealth Legacy Income Framework, my 5-stream foundation model. Number 1 is the primary income, career, or business. Number two is investment income, dividends, ETFs, or REITs. Number three, asset income from real estate or equity ownership. Number four, intellectual property income, things such as books, courses, and speaking. And then number five, strategic side enterprise, consulting, coaching, digital services. The goal is not to start all five at once. The goal is to start one more this year and then let it compound, uh, then let compound growth multiply it. And that's the essence of it. But again, real quick, primary income, which can consist of either your career or business, investment income, dividends, ETFs, and REITs, asset income, real estate or equity ownership, intellectual property, income, books, courses, speaking, strategic side enterprise, consulting, coaching, digital services. And the goal is not to start all five at once. The goal is to start one more this year, then let compound growth multiply it. And so, in closing, let me be direct. A single paycheck was designed for survival. There's a little bit of struggling going on depending on how much income you earn and whether you have a housing situation that allows you the opportunity to still have some income left over, your insurance, a car, if you have kids. And then multiple streams are designed for freedom. If you want generational wealth, if you want options, if you want to retire with dignity, if you want your children to inherit assets instead of bills, you cannot rely on one income source. You must lead yourself into ownership. You must build assets that produce cash flow, and you must think beyond your lifetime. Because wealth is not what you earn, it's what you build, it's what you multiply, it's what you transfer. And legacy does not happen by accident, it happens by strategy. And that's what I've been sharing in the last two episodes with you on episode 333 and 334. So here's the call to action. If this episode challenged you, here's your assignment. Number one, identify your current income streams and write them down so you can see what it looks like. I wrote it down and it scared me. I lost some hair and I'm bald headed. Number two is choose one additional stream to begin building within the next 90 days. Number three, increase your financial literacy around dividends, real estate, or digital ownership. And number four, share this episode with someone who needs to stop relying on one paycheck. And if you're serious about building multiple streams and creating generational wealth, join the Wealth Building Academy community. Go out there and visit us at www.paulvanspeaks.com and enroll in the next financial mastery session. Because here's the truth, you don't build generational wealth with one stream. You build it with strategy, discipline, and ownership. This is Paul Lawrence Vann, the Leadership Catalyst, and I'll see you on episode 336. And one of the things I always share is that go out there on Apple Podcasts and rate and review us and be generous with a 5-star review out there on Apple Podcasts, and ensure that this content that you share it with others, you share it with members of your family, you share it with your colleagues and with your friends. And that will really be a wonderful thing for you to do. So everybody is learning and they're growing in the process. But again, it was my pleasure to work with you through this today because this is a very important topic. And again, the question that I pose to you is to help you because we talk about 7 streams, 1 legacy, and why multiple incomes are the blueprint for generational wealth. So my time is up and I thank you for yours. Again, the name is Paul Lawrence Vann, and I really appreciate you for being here live in addition to on the archive. Have a good day, and I'll see you on episode number 336. Have a great day.